The next reader will be Richard Truhlar from his new book, Infinite Anatomies. It's a collection of short stories that take Richard's work. He's the author of many, many books in a very different direction. Just reading from the back here, Richard is the author of 8 books of fictions and poetry: Terminal Intelligence, The Hollow and Other Fictions, The Pitch, Dynamite in the Lung, Figures in Paper Time, Utensile Paradise, Parisian Novels, and A Porcelain Cup placed there, as well as chapbooks and numerous publications in various journals and magazines. Without further ado, Richard Truhlar.
Thank you, Beverly. Especially thank you, Beverly. Beverly has been my editor and publisher for over 30 years. Now starting with Aya Press and then Mercury Press, and now she's my editor at Teksteditions. So thank you very much for doing this book. The story I'm going to read is called Bewildered Liturgy. So, Mr. Melmoth, you've written us a number of times regarding your complaints. What is it exactly you're upset about this time? Said the wonderfully accommodating man seated behind the plastic desk. And be specific, please. There are too many departments here to handling grievances. A grievance? Oh, no, and not a complaint either. More an anomaly, said Charles Melmoth, seated across from this pleasant, accommodating personage. You know, it's one of those kind of unexpected social phenoms. The accommodating man replied, Anomaly? Phenom? Nothing my department can generally do for you, so what exactly is the problem? My wife, she's disappeared, said Melmoth. That's not a grievance, said the wonderful man. It's a statement, an imprecise statement to be precise. So, have you been sexually abused by your wife? If so, you need to go to the Office of Sexually Aggrieved Males. Office number 204 on your left when you leave here. No, said Charles, I haven't been abused in any way. She's just vanished. Vanished, eh? The bespectacled man mused as he took out a large tome from his desk and began turning pages. Let's see. Vaguely conflicted person of the criminal type. No, that's not it. Validly confused person about documents. No, again. Vanishing person of unknown origin. Ah, that must be it. You need to go to office 314. But she's not of unknown origin. She's my wife and has lived in this city all her life, replied Melmoth. Well, we don't know that, do we? We don't know where she's from or where she's going. Please proceed to office 314. The gentleman there will hopefully help you. The elevator is just to the right of my office, down the corridor. Take it to the next level. And with that, the suddenly unaccommodating man slipped shut the tome and sat back with a smug smile on his face. Well, thank you for your time, said Melmoth, as he proceeded to exit the Office of General Inquiries. In the elevator, Melmoth thought about the occurrence that late afternoon of the preceding day. He had returned at his usual time from work. Coming through the front door, he had hollered his standard salutation, to which Vera had replied from the kitchen, "Just in time, dinner's ready." He had hung his hat in the vestibule and entered the open space that served both as living and dining room. Vera, smiling triumphantly, had stepped from the kitchen holding the silver platter upon which sat a succulent browned pork roast with rosemary garnish. He could smell the rosemary, and in the blink of an eye, she vanished into thin air, the platter and pork crashing to the floor. Melmoth's jaw dropped open, and he crashed to the floor like the pork and platter, but in a faint, where he stayed until next morning. Awakening, he began to mutter, "Vera, I had the strangest dream," his arm reaching out to caress his bedmate before he realized He was lying on the floor, staring at the living room ceiling. A cold chill crept up his spine as his eyes sought out his wife, only to encounter a pork roast and a platter only, on the floor, but no Vera. Stepping from the elevator, Melmoth felt an ache he couldn't explain. "Oh, come on, Charles," he thought. "You know exactly why you're feeling this. She is a part of you, intricately woven into your nervous system, a distinct emotion apart from yourself, yet present in your thoughts, and as real as you are to yourself, and now she's gone." He opened the door to room 314, and was suddenly confronted with a stentorian voice declaiming, "Name?" Melmoth quickly moved to the only available chair, placed directly in front of the Inquisitor, who, behind his desk, seemed to be engaged in some obscure activity with his hands. Charles Melmoth, sir." "Date of birth?" asked the Inquisitor of the Office of Vanishing Person of Unknown Origin. "February 14th, 1950, replied Melmoth. I'm assuming you're here with a problem to solve? One which deals with a vanishing person of unknown origin? Am I right? For if I am wrong, you needn't be here," said the Inquisitor in a loud, declamatory voice. "It's my wife, Vera," said Melmoth softly, so as not to encourage any further stentorianism. So your wife, this Vera, she is now, as we say, a vanishing person of unknown origin?" "Well," began Melmoth cautiously, "she's not unknown. I've known her for 30 years, and I know her background, her family, and her origins mostly." "Mostly? But vanishing." And the Inquisitor seemed to sink deeply into thought while his hands moved in arcane ways at some obscure activity. "Ah! Here it is," the Inquisitor shouted, now no longer Inquisitor, but a declaimer. "Right here, see?" And the bony forefinger of his right hand pointed down at the desk as his face hovered, staring a mere 8 inches above his discovery. "It's the tower," he said assuredly. "What?" asked Melmoth, his eyes trying to make out what seemed to be a card of some sort on the desk. "The tower, man! Can't you see it? In the cards of understanding of a vanishing person of unknown origin, the tower represents prayer. Your wife has gone to pray," explained the declaimer, smiling as if all questions had been answered. Melmoth stared at the man, stared down at the card he pointed to, stared back at the man, and sputtered, "What? Vera doesn't pray. She's a fucking atheist. She didn't go to any tower to pray." And for the first time in his life, Melmoth seriously thought about making someone vanish, making this declaimer of the Office of Vanishing Persons of Unknown Origin vanish. "Now, firstly, there's no need for profanities. I understand your acquaintance with the common vernacular," spoke the declaimer. "You either go or you don't go. Simple, really." "Go where?" asked Melmoth. "Well, to the tower, of course," replied the declaimer in exasperation. "You must wend your way hence. Then you'll know why your wife goes to pray when she doesn't pray. But heed me well. There are many trials in the tower, first and foremost being your encounter with the gatekeeper, who prevents the unwanted, the uncalled for, from entering. Then be prepared for any manner of being, all hostile, all your sworn enemy." And the declaimer then picked up the card of the tower and gave it to Melmoth. "You'll need this," the declaimer said. "It's your token of access." "But I have no enemies," Melmoth replied. "No matter," replied the declaimer. "You must now journey to the tower. There is a small lighthouse on the islands off this city's coast. There you must go to find your wife." Melmoth stared at the declaimer, then at the card of the tower in his hand, and reluctantly left. It was a pleasant afternoon when Melmoth disembarked from the ferry to the point, the westernmost of the city islands. The sky was clear blue, but for the occasional clouds scudding by. He had a 40-minute walk before he would arrive at the Lake Light, the small historic landmark that was the first and only lighthouse of the city's harbor. "It's only 82 feet high. That's no tower," he thought to himself as he viewed the abundant flora surrounding him along the roadway he traveled towards his destination. Melmoth loved plants, so much so that early in his youth he had become an amateur paleontologist, searching certain areas in southwestern part of the province where erosion had uncovered the past, uncovered the trace forms of prehistoric plant life. In the present, he enjoyed being the chief tender of the cool house in the gardens, the botanical conservatory in the heart of the city. While inexplicable negative emotions and irrational thoughts had besieged him throughout his existence, he had fought them off, knowing somehow that his transport through this short life must, of necessity, concur with creative thought and deed. And of course, there was Vera, a gentle, compassionate woman who also struggled to evolve beyond negative self-evaluation. And he knew that he would forever be her partner, her lover, and her friend. He had met her in the cool house. "What is that? It's lovely," she had asked as he was about his watering duties. "It's a Kashmirian cypress," he had replied as he looked into two of the loveliest amber eyes he had ever seen. While meditating upon his disappeared loved one, he happened to look up and find himself but a number of yards from the lake light, this so-called tower of a vanishing person of unknown origin. "You've got to be kidding," Melmoth laughed to himself while appraising the diminutive structure. Within seconds, a figure appeared from behind the lighthouse, a man, his clothing and wide-brimmed leather hat all in black, and who seemed at ease and in no hurry to speak as he slowly sauntered towards Melmoth. "You're the gatekeeper?" Melmoth queried, while thinking to himself that he had fallen into an elaborate ruse. "You are?" asked the man. "Charles Melmoth. And you are here for?" "My wife, Vera," replied Melmoth, fumbling in his pocket and producing the card of the tower, a vanishing person of unknown origin. "Are you sure it's she who's vanished and not yourself?" asked the gatekeeper, taking the card from Melmoth's hand. What? Melmoth sputtered. "Well, you're here, aren't you?" replied the man in black, all the while displaying nothing more than a distant demeanor. "And you shouldn't be. Besides, there is no answer here for your question, since there is no question for your answer." Melmoth just stared at the man. "If you enter that tower," said the gatekeeper, pointing to the structure behind him, "if you enter through its door, you will encounter..." And the man paused but showed no emotion. "Well, you're free to do so, of course, since I have your card, and it's not my role to either encourage or dissuade any wandering soul like yourself." "I want my Vera back," said Melmoth, his voice slightly cracking. "It's your choice," said the gatekeeper, and slowly stepped aside as Melmoth moved towards the tower door, opened it, and without hesitation stepped through. "Charles? Charles, are you awake?" queried a voice from far away. "Vera?" Melmoth seemed to croak as he began to sense motion around him and opened his eyes, somewhat uncomprehendingly, since he could not remember closing them. "It's okay, darling. I'm here. You're doing okay. Just rest. I'm here with you. Vera?" And Melmoth's eyes began to focus, the face of his wife looking down at him, smiling, but with a trace of recent tears on her cheeks. "You've had a minor heart attack, darling, but the medic says you're okay. We're in the ambulance now on the way to the hospital," Vera said. "How?" began Melmoth. "Shh, don't try to talk. You've just walked in from work and suddenly collapsed in front of me. You're going to be okay. I called emergency immediately. They say it's very minor." "Vera?" "Yes, darling," said his wife. "Vera, do you pray?"